So obviously the foundation for working on any website starts with understanding your traffic. I'm talking about existing visitors to your website. So it's understanding where those users are coming from, where they land when they get to your site. It's the terms they use or the campaigns they see before they get to you. It's understanding why they're there and what they're looking for. And it's then what they're doing when they get to your website. It's all this stuff. So before we start analysing any of your traffic, one of the first things we're going to want to do is check that we're collecting everything that we need and that the data we are collecting is accurate. So we're going to want to have confidence in those numbers. If you're concerned that analytics isn't triggering on every page, look at the reporting section of the specific tools, such as Google AdWords for paid, Google Search Console for organic traffic, Meta Ads Manager, and so on. I wouldn't worry if there's a small difference. So analytics is based on the data from your website, whereas Google Search Console gets its data from the search results themselves. Therefore, if your website is temporarily down, it'll be recorded in Search Console, but it won't be recorded in analytics. Most importantly though, if you do have a data problem, it's important to get that fixed first. Before opening any of your platforms, always have specific questions to answer. Otherwise, you can spend hours wasting time looking at the same old stuff. I'd also recommend putting an observations doc or spreadsheet together where you log issues, opportunities, and next steps. And next steps can be as simple as we need to investigate this further, or it could be that we don't have enough data on this issue. Let's go and have a look at this source instead. Sometimes the amount of data can be overwhelming, and I rarely look at total numbers because that never shows me what's really going on. Where possible, I like to segment the data, and I've got a really specific way that I like to understand traffic. So I usually pick out 4, 5, 6 segments depending on the size and complexity of a website and business. So in a tool like Google Search Console that just looks at your organic traffic, I might segment by mobile devices for a particular section of the website where they've used non-branded keywords to get there and only from the United Kingdom. I like to create these more specific segments. So section off parts of the website, for example, the blog content can be very different to commercial pages. The experience on mobile can be totally different to the experience on desktop. If you aren't a global company, then the intent of users in one country will be very different to the intent of other countries. Not all traffic sources or campaigns are equal, and so the intent to buy from somebody via an AdWords campaign versus a YouTube video on a semi-related subject might be different. And where possible, I like to separate traffic based on branded campaigns and keywords versus non-branded. And that's just because somebody typing in your brand, they've already heard of you versus somebody that hasn't. These segments can be particularly helpful for reporting month on month or year on year, just because the makeup of your traffic can change. A free tool like Google Analytics is really good for helping you understand what people are doing when they get to your website, and you get some really useful information out of the box. With GA4, you can also add in custom events like more specific scroll tracking, or you can record things like internal link clicks, so where people go on your website from specific pages. I particularly like looking at things like where people leave, so exit rates. But my favorite part of GA4 is the exploration section. And that's basically where you can try and answer your questions by slicing and dicing data on the fly. Obviously, there are other analytics platforms, whether that's a plugin or application you're using within your CMS, or it's a purpose-built platform. Just make sure you're looking at things like popular journeys, again, that you're segmenting where possible, and you're checking where you're losing those people. With analytics, something to bear in mind is you get that data from the moment you set them up, whereas something like Google Search Console, it actually backdates. One thing I can't recommend enough is just make sure you're looking at your website when you're analysing data about it. I think this is especially really important with GA4, where page titles have become more prominent than they used to be. So before, you'd probably click into a URL to see what the page was about, whereas now it's quite obvious based on the page title. And I had this example the other day where a company had launched their website and they were really worried about their conversion rates dropping. And so the first thing I did was look at their most popular pages. So I found them on analytics, and then I went onto the website and had a look at those pages. And I could see that there was loads of information missing and there were issues with those specific pages. So look at the data, but look at your website hand in hand. So another way to do this is watching recorded sessions of people using your website. So you see where their mouse goes, you see them click, you see where they tap when they're on their phone, and you follow their journeys. And I find it fascinating because I think often when we use websites, we tend to do the same journeys each time. So we start on the home page, we'll look at some key category pages and look at some product pages. But this is actually sitting down for a few hours and watching real people using your website. These tools often have things like scroll maps, click maps, and heat maps as well. There's Microsoft Clarity, which is free. There's Hotjar, there's Full Story. They're all really good tools for this. So this video is about understanding your traffic, and there are a few more things that I would do. So one of them is looking at those pages that are really popular, that have high exit rates. And I would ask the question just with a pop-up, so you can use a tool like Hotjar, and ask them if they found the answers they were looking for, or have they found what they're looking for today? And just leave it open-ended, and so you get that qualitative feedback. So another thing that I can't recommend enough is incentivizing website users to fill out some surveys to understand more about them. Something like an Amazon voucher or a coffee voucher is usually enough for an incentive. So rather than guess, we just ask them. And so questions would include things like, tell us about you, tell us about what you're looking for, and what problem in your life does that solve? What features are important to you? What questions did you have that you couldn't find the answers to on our website? Hopefully, if you go through these steps, you'll understand more about your traffic